Welcome to the Raj Kotecha Show, #1 podcast in Dubai, and we're coming to you now from 3 countries, 3 time zones, and with a new guest in the hot seat. Jesal is in the house. Jesal, what's going on?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good, man. Jesal is one of my true, for real friends. I go back a long time with him. Vik and I are love soul. Jesal, when we first met, was Jesal. We've even done a little podcast together when, speaking of Jay-Z got into a punching and defending and kicking match in an elevator with his sister-in-law Solange and Beyonce. We did a little special, me, him, and Bal. Bal's also on the advisory committee as well. So thanks for jumping in today, because Alex couldn't make it because he's out doing all sorts of debauchery in Amsterdam. So thanks for jumping on at short notice.
That's all good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I don't even have an insult prepared. So that means Alex will just get 2 next week. And joining me as always is Vik. Vik, what's going on?
What is up? I was quicker in my response today than last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesal, thanks for joining. This was a good episode, man. And I think, we talk, we'll talk about what we talk about, but we get really deep into the UK economy stuff and what to think about. And it was really good to have you, Jesal, on to give us an angle from, a finance hat, but also someone that's sitting in the UK as well. So yeah, man, this was a good episode.
What else did we get into?
Well, we did a little bit of stuff around some announcements from the UAE, masks coming off and Nikhil doing some cool things in the city. And of course,
another palm. Yeah, we'll just tell you straight up, if you've seen the Palm Jumeirah, you've seen Flow Rider or Will Smith jumping out of planes, and you see that piece of land in the ocean that's shaped like a palm tree with a circle around it. Well, guess what? There is one which is going to be double the size, which is going to be coming online in the next couple of years. It's one that they started building before 2008. They stopped. We're going to be talking about that and the comeback and what we think it's going to mean for house prices and overall people coming to Dubai. What else?
And we also talk about the sad news of Coolio passing and actually reminisce on some of the legendary work that he's done, which sometimes slips your mind about Coolio.
Yeah, we definitely get into a deep dive on how incredible this dude is. And it's no coincidence that today we've ended up with 3 people in their 40s talking about Coolio. So rest in peace, Coolio. And then any other stories?
Yeah, we talked about the new documentary that 50 Cent is producing. It's coming out in November, called Hip Hop Homicides, which obviously talking and shining a light on all the murders that are happening in the hip hop community, particularly with the younger artists.
Mm-hmm.
No out and about in Dubai, because I haven't been out and about in Dubai.
Yeah, but I'll tell you a little bit about why I'm here in Zanzibar, moments away from the beach, literally in paradise. And like I said, it's a great show. Jesal really kind of opened our eyes to a whole bunch of economic stuff. And what I love about this episode, and the reason why you should stay tuned right through to the end, is because you're going to get a glimpse of the kind of conversation that Jesal and I have when we hang out face to face, which we had the opportunity to do earlier on in the year. If you have got a moment whilst we're playing this intro music, give us a 5-star rating review on Spotify, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, and leave us a like and a comment whenever you hear something that floats your boat. And so without any further ado, Jesal, Vik, Raj running up this episode of the Raj Kotecha Show. Alex, run the intro music. All right, so I'm excited to have such a brilliant replacement for Alex here today. Jesal's here. Jesal, what's going on, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
Super good. I'm so glad that we get to do this again. As mentioned in the intro, it's not your first time. We've covered one of the biggest Jay-Z stories before, but it's great to have you on ALGO. A lot going on. And thanks so much for being part of the editorial team. So that means that you've had already a great look over these stories and a big influence on them. So without any further ado, we can't really get into out and about in Dubai unless you've been out and about in Dubai yourself this week, Vik.
No, I've been doing nothing but staying at home and working and looking after my kid. That's basically all I've been doing. Remember last time we spoke about this, when you're not in town, I've got no social life. So
there's tomorrow your first radio spot in Dubai.
Yeah. So tomorrow, which is Friday, the 30th of September, is National Podcasting Day. And we've been invited on to talk FM which is a local radio station in Dubai. Just to talk a little about podcasting, why it exists, what's good about it, why businesses should be doing podcasts. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And alongside one of our former clients, Spencer Lodge.
Are you excited? How do you feel like this is your first time as a company spokesperson, I would guess?
Yeah, it is my first time as a company spokesperson. Well, particularly solo, without you. Yeah, I'm super excited. It's a world that I know pretty well, podcasting. We've produced, 6, 7, 800 podcasts, something like that, give or take, just in the last 3.5 years. So, it's a world I know really well. I'm super excited to talk about it.
Nice. Yeah. So big up to Lachlan, our friend on that radio station, for inviting us up for, is it World Podcast Day, or what did you say it was?
I think it's International Podcasting Day.
All right, we'll be excited, and there'll be in an upcoming episode of the Raj Kotecha show. We will get that audio, and then we'll play it, and then we'll jump on afterwards and break down what was said. But yeah, I mean, in terms of for me out and about in Dubai, it's not been the case. This whole week I've been here in Zanzibar, which is in Tanzania. Although Zanzibarians, I realized this week, because I was hanging out with some young go-getters in the city, they don't claim Tanzania, they claim Zanzibar. So which is mad crazy. So I want to just give a quick shout out to some people that have held me down in the city, just on some like real G shit. First up, I want to shout out my man Ali, who's got a dope restaurant just here on the northwest coast, and the name of the restaurant is La Fontana Restaurant and Bungalows, and he's got this dope cinema screen in the restaurant, which is permanently up, and he just flicked on the Arsenio Netflix special, but we'd been kicking it for like 2.5 hours already. So I was like, yo, I gotta go, because I had to come back and have dinner with the family. Shout out to my mom. It was her 70th birthday this week, and my parents is their anniversary this weekend. And there's another young cat as well who was so crazy. Kid looks like Drake, like handsome kid, and he owns a incredible I'll mention the name of the hotel before we end up here, but this is a hotel where if you walk through the hotel, on the other side is the ocean, and twice a day a sandbank is revealed. So if you've never been on a sandbank, it's when the water retracts and all you've got is pure untouched sand. So when you walk through it, it's just like completely flat and really, really beautiful. So that's my man Naz, so shout out to him as well. Big up to them for like hosting me in their restaurant and just giving me the lowdown on what's going on in the city. A lot of money to be made here in Zanzibar. Vic, we've also might even have a gig opportunity over here to come and smash.
Let's get it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let's get it. Let's get it. I've been waiting to come out there.
Yeah, it's too good. And I think I sent you a video of where I'm staying, but like the pool is outside, and then 2 pools in front of me, and then on the other side of them is the beach, is the ocean. So having a wicked week. But let's get into the news. What are we starting with today?
Yeah, so the first thing that I really want to talk about is huge news coming out of the UAE, which is as of Wednesday the 28th, so as of recording today, which is yesterday, Wednesday 28th of September, UAE has dropped the need for masks, which is big news here, because since the start of everything in 2020 up until Wednesday, masks have been mandatory wherever you go. Slowly they kind of said, okay, in public you don't need to wear them, but inside, no matter what, you had to wear them, and they were handing out fines for anyone that wasn't wearing them properly. So as of Wednesday, you don't officially have to wear them unless you're in a hospital or in like a hospital or place of worship. Mm-hmm. So those are 2 kind of exceptions, but it feels great. It feels amazing to guilt-free not wear the mask.
So we're 24 hours into it now in Dubai, right? So what did you do? Say you did like just moving around, went to pick up your son, and was it the case that the school and all the parents, everybody was mask off, or are there some people that are still like choosing to kind of keep a bit of mask time going?
Yeah, no, there's still a bunch of people choosing to wear masks. I mean, I still see people driving on their own with the masks fully on, kind of thing, which is fine. But yeah, there are some people that are still choosing to wear masks. But the schools have all put out, you can see on social media, lots of people are like videos of like them walking to the school but chucking the masks in the bin, big smiles, the teachers taking it off. So when I dropped my son to school yesterday, no masks, everyone was like big smiles. It was nice. And I think for me as a dad, one thing is, I've been saying this for a while, it's like we really just want to drop the mask for the kids at school. So that's a really big thing. But there's still quite a few people wearing masks. There's a lot of the like the maintenance guys that work around my community. A lot of them are still wearing masks. I think maybe just because they feel they want to or they might need to. But yeah, it's a good time now. It's a
All
good
right, well,
time.
all you scumbags getting rid of your masks now, please put them in the bin and make sure they don't end up in the ocean. Otherwise, the Little Mermaid's going to look like she's in bondage. Halle Berry's going to be in bondage. Does it sound weird us talking about getting rid of masks in Q4 22, Jessel?
No,
Considering
it sounds like you're in a responsible country as opposed to like a lunatic one, basically. It sounds like there's been like an actual plan as opposed to a free-for-all descent into anarchy. So it's good. It actually makes me happy that everything's been more stage by stage in Dubai.
Did you get the vid or you didn't?
I got it probably a couple of times, right at the very beginning, and then another time at the beginning of this year. But
Wow.
it didn't. Luckily, it didn't affect me too badly. It was like I was knocked out for about half a day or something.
Mm.
You know what's crazy, Jessel? There's one guy that should have definitely got it because he's out with the people all the time, and that's Raj, and he never got it.
Yeah. Short of licking lampposts, I've done everything to like get down with it, and I've not got it, and I'm grateful for it because I'm an asthmatic. So anything that jumps in my system that plays around with me that way, it can be tricky. But yeah, no, I'll take that. I would say, big up to the UAE. Like as soon as all this stuff got announced, even though they didn't know what was going on, like the rest of the world didn't know what was going on, they made sure that there was drones flying around and everything was being sanitized and everyone was looked after, and there was water and toilet paper and everything stacked up outside the stores, almost as a display of confidence. His Highness came out in the UAE and said, "You got nothing to worry about. I've got clothes and I've got medicine and food for everyone, but just stay at home." And so they delivered on that promise. So yeah, it's great. And I read in the press release as well that it's for airlines. It's on a per airline basis if they want you to wear a mask or not. So I'm flying in a couple of days back to the UAE on a direct flight. So it'd be interesting to see if my air carrier says, "Hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. No masks." I know it was pretty chill when I flew to Zanzibar, so I'm hoping that it'll be like basically no need for it. And I can't wait to walk out of the plane into Terminal 3 DXB and just see people with no masks. It'd be great. So good vibes, man. Congratulations, UAE, on holding that down. And let's see what it also does for the game as well now, like in terms of just like seeing people out. I can't wait to, although I'm not trying to be out too much in nightlife world, but I can't wait to see what it's like in the clubs and bars again, because especially when it comes to like the younger bars, like the places where people in their 20s and 30s hanging out, they do need to read each other's faces. And I think it's going to raise the energy levels in the clubs and bars again. I think it'll be good for like revenue in F&B as well.
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting just on the airline thing. I think Emirates have said that it depends on where you're flying to and their rules, whether you wear a mask or not. So if the country that you're flying to still needs masks and etc., then you still need to wear the mask. But like, let's say if we're flying to the UK, then I believe you don't need to wear a mask. But don't quote me on that. Just make sure you check with your airlines, and don't use me as your tour operator guidelines. So,
No.
but yeah, good times. A little bit more news out of Dubai actually. This one, there's not a lot of information, but the Palm Jebal Ali, they've like Dubai has announced that the Palm Jebal Ali, which is a Nakheel development, is going to relaunch and rebrand. We don't know fundamentally what the name will be or what it's going to be used for, but for anyone that doesn't know, that's outside of Dubai, there's essentially two palms. There's the palm that everyone knows, which is the palm being a set of man-made islands. When you look at it from the top, it looks like a palm tree, and it has the same kind of fronds and the leaves and everything that comes out of a palm tree. And the palm that everyone knows has villas and apartments and a mall and the fountain show and restaurants and Atlantis, the big hotel with Aquaventure and everything. But not too far from that, a little bit further south in a place called Jebel Ali, is another palm. And that started work but was halted in 2008, and it's just been sitting there. So now Dubai is looking to reinvest in it and regenerate it. Now, I don't know what they're doing. There's no real news, but I think that's going to do some good things for tourism again, for the real estate world, hospitality, F&B, all the industries that prop up Dubai. And I think it's timely with Expo City opening, because it's not far from Dubai South, which is where Expo City is. So now how those two tie up, I'm not sure yet, but there's definitely going to be some synergy there, I think.
Yeah, I think one thing we got used to as well is that, I've been in the market now eight years and coming in and out for 12 years, is that I think what's really interesting about going into it now is that the way that Dubai dealt with COVID has brought a lot of international investors in. It's generally a very open place. And so it's been great for bringing in like a lot of new money. But one thing that I think is going to cause no drama this time, which did cause a bit of drama pre 2020, is this whole ongoing conversation, cyclical conversation about oversupply, undersupply, oversupply, undersupply. The fact of the matter is that if there's a palm opening now, which is they started work on it pre-2008, they stopped, it's being done by Nakheel. Nakheel is the government, which means that it's well backed, it's a well liquidated project, and the government would not have reinstigated this project if they hadn't got some sort of data to say that there's going to be a lot more people coming into the city. It's looking bullish, but what that is going to do is, because it's on reclaimed land, it is going to create a period of oversupply for a period of time. So like basically between now and 2030, there's probably going to be huge pockets of when people are saying there's too many apartments, there's too many malls, there's too many. But what's going to happen is in 8 to 10 years, we're going to end up where we are in 2022, which is that there's not enough. Like literally, Jesal, imagine in 2019, domestic actors in the market were saying there's too much supply, there's too many keys in the market when it comes to hotel rooms, there's too many villas, there's too many flats. And literally during the 2022-21 pandemic, we went from like having too much to not having enough. So I think we're going to get like, I think it's a lot of capacity. Like the new one's going to bring a lot of capacity. And north of the city, they've got Deira Islands, Nakheel, as well. And that's now going to be called Dubai Islands. So yeah, man, congratulations to Nakheel, man. That's going to be like something interesting to see. And I think that might be the one thing that opens where I think, Vic, me and you will officially be too old to enjoy it.
What? Jebal Ali?
Yeah, man. I mean, by the time they get that online, from just being an outline at the moment of just like reclaimed land to being something that we can actually go and enjoy like the clubs and bars, we're going to be pushing 50.
Yeah, it's going to take years and years and years. But again, Dubai has a long-term vision, right? It's not thinking in small steps. It's really planned. It's really, Nakheel just did a rebranding of their logo. They've announced Palm Deer, as you mentioned. They've announced Palm Jebel Ali. They're thinking about things 10, 15, 20, 30 years ahead in terms of increasing the population, increasing the investment into the country. So yeah, it's going to take some time, but we can still enjoy it. There's going to be something for everyone there.
Maybe there's like a retirement villa or something, like a section there on one of the leaves.
You know what? That's interesting. He said that because part of the population capacity is going to be skewing slightly older. Jesal, they're releasing 10 visas in the next month. And some of those visas are for older people. And some of those visas are for, if you have one, you can sponsor an older person. That, Jesal with that comment, might have actually unlocked a part of the market that's not being promoted, which is immigration for senior citizens, like 55 and above.
I mean, if you're speaking from a UK perspective, Dubai has clocked it right now. It is the place to go for a whole generation of kids, especially. And then also my generation who have got young families and stuff, they're starting to flock to Dubai now. And the next stage of that is as a retirement place, effectively. When the Brits would traditionally go off to Spain or Portugal to retire and stuff, a lot of them will have no affiliation to Spain and Portugal, especially since Britain left the EU. They might just go to somewhere like Dubai and think, well, as long as their money can travel enough there, then it could be a good option.
Do you know what? I think
Good
that's
point.
That's a really smart observation, because particularly from the UK and many places around the world, but UK is a really interesting source market for retirement, because you're right. Where else are they going to retire to? Because they want somewhere that you can get, the language is not a barrier. food and culture isn't a barrier, and Dubai, there's no barriers to language, culture, and food. So,
and also, I mean, for brown people as well, it's halfway to India, and it's not India, because so many people don't want to retire in India, because if they've lived here, for example, or America or whatever their whole life, they know that it would be too much of a shock to go in your 60s or 70s to India and retire there, because everything's just so different. It's amazing, India, but it's just too different. Whereas Dubai could be that halfway house, which could be perfect for a lot of people.
yeah, there's the Indians are not the same. We're not the same as Indians from India. No matter how much we might hold on to our cultures and traditions, we're just not the same. So yeah, I think that's a really, really, really smart observation. And the visas is a interesting twist to it as well. Let's keep an eye on it, Raj. I think let's start thinking about our retirement plans in Dubai as well.
Yeah, I think it's such an incredible point. And actually, you know, the increased supply as well might have a regulating factor, which is that it might bring the overall net cost of property investment down a little bit. Because where we are right now, you know, looking at your rent, Vic, my rent, there are swings happening in rent going up 10 to 20% in the city right now, Jesal. So the downtown area where I live in Business Bay, which is 1 block from it. I've got a waterfront joint. The market price has gone up 20%. So when my flat went up 10% this year, I felt like that was a lot, because normally they go up in increments of 5. I've gone up in 10, but the neighborhood's gone up 20. So there is a sense everyone's definitely felt the jolt. But again, as Palm Jebel Ali starts to come online, and by the way, Palm Jebel Ali is a fraction, or a big fraction, but a fraction of what's coming online across Dubai and the mainland and inland. So yeah, I think overall we might see average house prices go down over a decade.
I hope so, because you're talking about your area, which has gone up, what did you say, 20%?
Yeah.
My area, which, you know, is a nice area, it's relatively new, it's gone up anything between 40 and 60% on rent. So if you're coming into the area new, compared to 12 months ago, expect to pay anything between 40 and 60% higher than the rent was 1 year ago, 12 months ago. It is bonkers. So there's a lot of people leaving because they just can't justify it. Even if you can afford the rent, you can't justify it. There's a lot of other places where it's not as expensive. So yeah, if it does have some kind of stabilizing factor, but the demand is so high on property, on real estate in Dubai at the moment, that you know, it just makes sense that the rent is high and property prices are high, but the demand is ridiculous. I mean, we have friends in real estate and they just don't have the time to do anything but sell.
Yeah. It's a boom market. It's a boom market.
It really is. Cool. So good news out of Dubai. Now, on to a little bit of unfortunate news. Actually, we heard, I think it was this morning, that the rapper from the 90s, Coolio, passed away at the age of 59, which is a really young age. He was responsible for Gangsta's Paradise, Fantastic Voyage, and a number of other big records. And yeah, he passed away this morning. There's no details around his death. We don't know what happened or why,
we know he was in his friend's bathroom. He went to use the bathroom, didn't open the door. They tried ringing him, I believe. They obviously got the door open and they saw that he passed away. And I only found this out about an hour ago, although I found it out technically 30 years ago. But I was on Twitter just now looking at the reactions of his passing, and he did the Keenan and Kel theme tune for Nickelodeon.
Yes, he did. I remember that. Yeah.
And he was flowing on that record. He was really like, there was times where he was like almost at Tretch levels in terms of his delivery of his verses. But firstly, rest in peace to Coolio. I got introduced to him through Fat Man Scoop in Barasti. They were both on the same bill, and I was down there backstage with Scoop at the performance. And then we were all in the lobby area afterwards hanging out, and Coolio was on his way out. So we just chopped up and said a quick hello. Very nice guy, absolute icon. Probably not demographically, there's probably not 3 more accurate people that can say that they're really kind of like saddened by Coolio passing, because we're all north of 40. What are your thoughts, Jesal?
I was actually really sad, I have to say. And throughout the day, I've just been listening to his records all day long. Like right now in my head, I've got See You When You Get There right now, just the music from that playing. And I think there can be this kind of cynical aspect to hip hop fans who are quite gatekeeperish and like, oh, anyone who sells more than 1 million records is a sellout and blah blah blah. I think that's not the case here with Coolio. Coolio already paid his dues. He worked his way up. He happened to, I mean, Fantastic Voyage was a big record in the US. I didn't hear it here or anything like that. But when Gangsta's Paradise dropped, that was a bomb. I mean, we were teenagers then. And that was the biggest song in the world, really, that year. It was huge. And it was linked with the Dangerous Minds film, and Michelle Pfeiffer, who's a goddess, was in the video, and just, amazing. It was an iconic moment. And it's really interesting because I'm a bit of a TikTok addict, and the Gangsta's Paradise music, the sound has really made it on TikTok over the last couple of years. It's such an iconic sound. So it's one of these things that will continue to pay dividends for him. And it is very sad. 59 is no age. Like, I sometimes kind of think for rock stars and for hip hop stars, maybe 59 is kind of a good run if you've really lived like a sort of a very intense kind of like drug-addled life and stuff like that. But I have no idea about Coolio, and it's just sad nonetheless, because he really is, to me, he is a legend. Like, even if I can only name like 6 of his songs, those songs are iconic songs, like big, huge ones. In the group chat, I said that Gangsta's Paradise is the 5th most streamed album on Spotify from the 1990s.
Wow.
Which blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind, because I can't name more than 2 songs off that album. Like, it's not like Ready to Die or anything like that,
But you imagine the albums, and you're talking about every genre of music. You're not just talking about hip hop, right? Is that correct?
No, I'm talking about hip hop. Yeah,
hip hop. But you think about the 90s, it
was the golden age.
Arguably, it's everyone calls it the golden era, and the amount of classic albums that came out, not just records, but albums that came out in the 90s. So for it to be the 5th highest streaming, and also not to forget, Raj, you mentioned Keenan and Kel. His verse on Hit 'Em High from the Space Jam soundtrack.
Oh my God.
Was wild.
Oh,
that was crazy as well. And that's just a verse on a record for a cartoon. Like, do you know what I mean?
yeah.
That was a fire verse. So so you're right. He's not got like a plethora of hits, and you may not be able to name more than half a dozen off the top of your head. But the ones you can, they stand the test of time.
Absolutely. I feel like though, like, once we start talking about Keenan and Kel and the fact that his verse was fire, and he was with some dangerous MCs on that Space Jam record. Like, I think Meth was on there. I think LL might have been spitting on there as well. Like, there was a lot of hardcore MCs on that record.
There, yeah.
Oh my God, Buster was on there, yeah. And I would actually say Coolio was one of the better verses on there. Like, and everybody was good, but Coolio did his thing. But do you remember, like, I wrote this on the group chat, like, when he first came out, there was no, he first comes out. So we're talking Fantastic Voyage might have been late 92, early 93, before Gangsta.
94, I think. 94, okay. Fantastic Voyage, yeah, I think.
So who are you just discovering around that time? For me personally, I was still in the tape era where I could only get hip hop if someone gave me a tape. So we're talking about, at that time, there was no difference to me between, there was at the very, very top of the ladder was Ice Cube and Ice-T. They were the ones that I memorized first. But then after that, if you'd ask me, like, is there any difference at that point in terms of who's a big rapper between Snoop, Spice One, Rappin' Forte, Tupac, MC8, Dre, Lady of Rage, E40, Dog Pound, Warren G, Too Short? They were all being thrown at us all at the same time. And it wasn't clear who was the quote unquote better rapper. In fact, Fantastic Voyage had such a bounce to it that I was probably more excited when that record came on UMTV Raps than most other records. That still to this day remains one of my favorite records. If you check my like records that I play on a yearly basis, it will always be there in the top 50 because it's just got such a phenomenal, like, it's got like a semi West Coast bounce to it, semi like Parliament Funkadelic kind of bounce to it. It's almost got like this like semi gospel-y sing-along element to it. It's just, it's brilliant. He was a dope artist. And the fact that you guys have mentioned all these records, I mean, to be honest, dude, like for somebody who widely gets categorized as a quote unquote one-hit wonder, you don't have to be the hardest of hardcore hip hop heads from the 90s to at least bust out, like Jesal said, like 6 records.
Yeah. In fact, that year was Illmatic came out that year as well, right?
Mm.
Ready to Die came out that year.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a huge, it's just a huge time. No, I think you're right. You know, the interesting thing about Coolio is that everyone does think of him as a one-hit wonder, but I think what he did, which was really important, and this was a big debate in the 90s, is, and you mentioned it as well, just about being a sellout. It was a huge breakthrough for taking hip hop mainstream and inviting a new audience into hip hop. And I think a lot of people really like debate that and go, oh, but you don't want to go mainstream, and particularly in the 90s. And I've always disagreed with that. I think the more people that can break through to the mainstream, get a bigger audience, regardless of background, race, creed, color, whatever it is, the more people that get interested in hip hop. And that just kind of flywheels and spinballs. And Coolio was, you know, a huge part of that in the 90s, a huge part.
Yeah, I'd also say it's a really intelligent case of sampling as well for tentpole singles that could then propel his album onto. If you listen to his albums, they've actually got a really nice mix of stuff. It's not like every song is a quote unquote sellout or anything like that. If you look at Gangsta's Paradise, that obviously takes a Stevie Wonder sample. If you look at Ooh La La, that takes Grace Jones' Pull Up to My Bumper. If you take See You When You Get There, that samples Mozart. Yeah, so it's kind of like very intelligent sampling, and those were the tentpole releases for him that really got him famous. And also, I think Gangsta's Paradise is a real outlier in his discography because it's such a slow flow. I mean, it's one of the slowest flowing hip hop albums in the history of mankind. Otherwise, he's much more of a sort of bouncy West Coast MC, as Raj was saying before. Whereas Gangsta's Paradise is like power and the money, money and you say the words power and the money and the power. Everyone knows what you're talking about. And it's got that steady flow, but that is very atypical to what his actual discography was. So it's really fascinating. I think he's just going to go down as a really fascinating legend for so many people. And it's rare to have such a unifying song that everyone knows. Like everyone knows that song. So it's just classic. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's also crazy. Like back in those days, you know, knowing the lyrics to Gangsta's Paradise was, you know, it had some like kudos to it. Like if you knew all the lyrics and someone else didn't, it was a big thing. I'll tell you a couple of funny Coolio stories. Not really funny, but one of them I had two encounters with Coolio. He performed at our Freshers Ball at university. So the Freshers Ball, for anyone that doesn't know, is like the big party at the end of Freshers Week, which is the first like week or 2 weeks of university when you start in your first year. And he performed at that event. Now I didn't get to interact with him or anything, but he was good. You know, the crowd loved him. 2-3 big records, came off stage. And then the second encounter, and I didn't really speak to him, but in 2016, when I moved to Abu Dhabi, I was at the mall and I was just walking past H&M, and there was these two big black guys and one other guy that also quite big but not as big, and wearing purple shirt, purple shorts, and maybe like a white vest or something. And it was Coolio, and he was just shopping in H&M, trying to stock up on like XXL log t-shirts or something. But the craziest thing is, you know, he's known for his hair, but he had three braids, like 3 dreads, one in the middle coming out of his hair, like standing up, and 2 on either side, like antlers. And he was just like walking around looking at t-shirts in H&M in a mall in Abu Dhabi. It was really weird. It was really random. But I was like, that's Coolio. And I just kept it moving because it wasn't really appropriate to go and approach him. It just didn't feel like it was the right thing to do at that time. Now looking back, you know, you go, I wish I did, but there you go.
One of our friends did text us today, a mutual friend of ours and Coolio's, and said that he was quite troubled. And actually, I think thinking about it, Vic, when you first got deep into like James Altucher, do you remember Coolio on James Altucher podcast, where he was talking about living in a bunker, and he was going through this like wild ass conspiracy theory where he felt like there was like frequencies that were trying to listen for him or something like that, and he just like kind of flipped out, like it was, and it's at that point where I was like, oh man, like this is a bit of a car crash podcast because Coolio's doesn't sound like he's healthy right now.
I do remember that. I don't remember the full context of it, but contents of that podcast, but I do remember he was on there. But this was ages ago, like a really long time ago.
Yeah, long
Maybe
time ago.
8, 9, 10 years ago, something like that, right? Must have been.
Yeah. My guess is actually when all's said and done, and I hope it's not the case, but he's passed away already, so all we can do is speculate is that this might get chalked up to fentanyl or something like that, or some sort of like dangerous mix. And I like this argument as well about fentanyl. People being like they get not accused, but they get categorized of like overdosing, but it's actually not an overdose. If there's fentanyl in there, the quantity is not the variable, or the dose is not the variable. It's the fact that this thing is so detrimental and murderous. So let's see how it goes. Rest in peace, Coolio. I do remember one time in GCSE drama, we were asked to do a scene, an old like Italian gangster scene in one of our assessments. And this guy was like, yeah, and we can play Gangster's Paradise in the background. And I was like, no, Peter, that's not the kind of Gangster's Paradise he's talking about, you fucking so,
yeah, Peter.
Yeah, Peter, you schmuck. Anyway, so yeah, anyway, rest in peace, Coolio. And I'm actually, it'd be interesting if Alex was on this, because he'd have no idea what the hell's going on. So
yeah, or even ask him to like know the sample from like Stevie Wonder sample, like he wouldn't even know that. So
well, if he's on TikTok, maybe he might have heard the sound being used though.
Yeah, he would have. He definitely would have.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Let's check with him next time he's on the show. What else have we got on the docket here?
So it's a little bit more from the music world, actually. 50 Cent has continuing his foray into TV, and he's just announced a documentary that he's doing called Hip Hop Homicides. So now, talking about the death of Coolio, now we also know that the hip hop world is troubled with a lot of murders, a lot of which go unsolved. So I think this is an effort to maybe highlight, what's going on in that world and why. And I don't know if it's going to solve anything, or if it's kind of, like Serial. We were talking about podcasts earlier about Serial, looking into like the actual, what's happening, investigating the murder, should I say. But this is a documentary about hip hop homicides. So I think they're going to be talking about a number of different people that have been killed, like Pop Smoke and King Von and XXXTentacion. So yeah, it's just thoughts on that, I guess, really. What do you think?
I mean, we saw the trailer before we started. It's an 80-second video package that just explains, what the show's about. But, Mona Scott Young, as she's known now, big producer of BET shows, Love and Hip Hop, things like that. 50 Cent, great momentum, hosted by Van Lathan, with little kind of like, looks like drop-ins. 50 doesn't look like the main to camera guy, but I'd be interested to see what Jesal thinks, because if me and Jesal were just hanging out, I would be waiting with bated breath to see what he thinks about it. It was very much an American TV trailer, that's for sure.
I mean, it's not my kind of show, and it's not the kind of trailer that would attract me, but I do think it's a really serious issue in the hip hop community. Both, I mean, not just in America, in the UK, in lots of places around the world as well. And it's very sad because when, especially like someone like Pop Smoke, I mean, he was 21 or 19, so young. You think we hadn't even lived life at that stage. And it's just very sad that when people are getting targeted once they have a bit of success, it's tragic. It is really tragic, and it is an epidemic. I don't think they're underselling that. So, I might not be the demographic for it, but I'm sure it'll find an audience.
But do you feel like that? And I encourage you to go out there and watch the trailer, if you've not had a chance to check it out there, just for context. But like, it did feel a bit sensationalized. I mean, there was lots of gun sounds in there. It wasn't being presented like a Louis Theroux documentary. It was quite energized when it comes to murder and killing and these kind of things. And you're right, it is an epidemic. News came out today breaking about PNB Rock, who was fatally murdered in Inglewood, Roscoe's Chicken. I've spent some time, well, not spent some time, but I was invited to dinner in Inglewood, and it was a very calm place, at least the part that we went to, and the folks that we were with. But of course, it's got kind of a crazy reputation, especially that place. Turns out that actually the two people that may have allegedly killed him, a father-son combo, were already in Roscoe's when he walked in. The father was the getaway driver, and the 17-year-old son may have allegedly pulled the trigger. So we're talking about getting your life taken in a really, really serious manner in a flash. Obviously, there was a lot of speculation that it might have been because of a social media tag by his partner, but it looks like it wasn't that. So it's looking pretty bad. But the question is, do you think it will do anything to either solve any of these cases or prevent the action happening in the future? I didn't get that sense when I saw the trailer that this might be the beginning of a solution.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think a documentary, and you're right, it feels very sensationalized, the trailer. Now, whether that's reflected in the actual documentary or not remains to be seen. It's out in November. I'll watch it for sure, just to kind of, even if it's just to see if the sensationalism carries through. But I don't think it's going to do anything. I mean, there's been a number of documentaries and nothing's happened. I think there was one on, like, I think it was called Biggie and Tupac. Like,
classic.
From the cops' point of view, right? Like talking about the evidence and stuff. You know, nothing's really come of that, because it doesn't really come down to a documentary to solve these crimes or, you know, to do anything. Yeah, it can shed some light, but it actually comes down to the people and the police. And if nothing kind of happens from that point of view, then, you know, the documentary is not really going to scratch the surface, I don't think. What do you reckon, Jesal?
Yeah, I would agree with that. That Biggie and Tupac one, there was one back about almost 20 years ago, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was Nick Broomfield, this really geeky white guy. Yeah, and that was incredible. I used to watch that every few months. I've still got it on DVD. And that was a phenomenal documentary because it was crafted by a real documentary maker. I think this does look like a sensational TV program and stuff. But like I said, I'm sure it'll find its audience. I don't think it will make any difference, but maybe it does. Maybe it just is trying to highlight how much of this is going on. Because I think also, even for me, I'll log onto the internet and see, okay, another rapper's died. And they're usually ones, if they're a young one, generally I haven't heard of them. Like someone like Pop Smoke, obviously I knew, but some of the ones recently, I've never heard of them. And I'm at an age now where it will start to go over my head a bit, but there are people who do really care, and their audiences care, their fans care, their communities care. So like I said, I think this will reach someone. It might highlight the cause a bit more. It's obviously no program's going to like solve it. It's like doing a documentary on racism in football. It's not going to solve racism. It's a societal problem. So, but any good that it can do, you know, is, as long as they're not trying to cash in and sensationalize it too much and pour fuel on the fire. I just hope they're not doing that. But, you know, I guess let's see in November.
Yeah, I mean, look, if there's some kind of awareness that's spread, maybe, you know, that's a goal, you know, and if that's achieved, then that's great, because, you know, all of these types of issues, you know, you spoke about racism in football, or whether it be, you know, hip hop artists getting murdered on the street, or in Roscoe's Chicken, you know, it all needs awareness for something to happen. So if at the very least it creates some level of awareness, that's a good thing. But let's see.
What's interesting from a media perspective, though, just picking up on Jesal's point, is that when we look at Nick Broomfield, who is a true documentarian who did a really authentic deep dive and got that perspective of the cop and made something which is iconic, which made something that gave Jesal a lot of like replay value. And that is on DVD, a DVD that he still has in his house. It's interesting that when we hear about a lot of these young kids that are dying, especially like, you know, people that I'm less familiar with, like the Chicago drill rappers and folks like that, we only consume those stories on the internet. So we never really get the full picture, and we never really get interviews with the family and witnesses and things like that. So actually shifting it to TV and putting it in a structured format could be quite interesting, because like for folks like us in our 40s, when are we actually going to get it all presented and curated and put on a plate in front of it, even in front of us, even if it is sensationalized? Because when these rappers die, we get little patches of information, and then the news cycle just continues forward, and you never truly get to understand who this kid was, what crew he was part of, what records he was known for. And I'm sure the TV show will do a good job with that. But certainly the video trailer looks like it kind of does feel like it's taking advantage and exploiting it a little bit. And you do get a little bit of that vibe coming from like Mona Scott's camp, because she's responsible for a lot of those kind of like high intensity, crazy background music, crazy effects, just like to keep the brain occupied. Also, what will sadden me, and I know this is going to happen, is that the irony of this is that some rapper's going to threaten another rapper in a lyric saying, "Don't end up on Hip Hop Homicides." That's going to happen. That's just a natural irony of the situation that we found ourselves in.
Let me ask you a question to both of you, I guess. Is 50 Cent relevant to the younger audience?
Yes.
And do you think, because I have an answer to this as well, do you think it's because of his music or his TV?
Both.
Right, good.
It's historical music from almost 20 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago, and his TV production agency or whatever he's got, his powerhouse. Also, he's pretty good on social media. He's pretty solid. And so, and also in a case like this, he has been shot 9 times, lest we forget. So, you know.
Yeah, so that's good, because that's actually the point that I wanted to raise, is that 50's been shot. He's not short of controversy, and he has moved into TV really well. Now, I like his Power series. Yes, there's a bunch of cliches, but I like the way it's done. So having someone like 50 produce it gives it a level of credibility compared to it being like another hip hop artist, because he's been in TV. He's known for like production in TV. So I think that will support the credibility of the show, should it be produced well, or at least come across well. So yeah, it's an interesting point.
I think to answer that as well is that unfortunately, a lot of these rappers that have been killed, they are young guys. And so if anything, this will actually bring some of that attention onto 50. This is another way of standing next to the youth news cycle. And so for him as well, you know, 50 is an interesting and diversified brand, in the sense that if you come in through the documentary, you might discover the music. And then from the music, you might discover the TV show. Or you might come in from the TV show, discover the documentary, discover the music. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of like, it's almost like a circular building with 800 doors around it. And the point is that the consumer walks through one of them and then discovers what's going on inside the hallways. So, you know, for a TV channel, it's a perfect combo, isn't it? It's Van Lathan, Mona Scott on production, 50 executive production. They're all showing up at various different parts except for Mona. And yeah, it's probably going to be quite successful, but really a shame that we even need a TV show like this. But yeah, that's what's going on with 50. Well, how many more things we got on the...
Well, let's end on some uplifting news. A last minute edition, which is not really that last minute. Raj, you wanted to talk about the pound getting leathered again. We spoke about it briefly last week. And I'm glad that Jesal's on the show, which means some of the heavy lifting on my side, I can get rid of that and push that onto you, Jesal. So Raj, you know, you put it in there about the pound getting leathered, and the Bank of England is making some moves. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that the best way I would describe it is as I saw it online today on somebody's Instagram or somewhere, which is that when we talk about crypto and shit coins, the pound is the new shit coin. Yeah. And the memes have started of like, you know, how many things can you buy in the UK with like a US dollar now? And this is like the beginning of a massive like luxury house party. I posted one as well, which was, this was before the pound. This was in last week's pound getting pounded kind of era. But, you know, the scene from Scarface where they all show up at the bank with bags of money. And I said, once we heard that the pound was so weak, I was like, this is people with dirham showing up at Harrods in about 3 hours. But I'm not even going to get into it. I just know that last week was bad. This week was worse. And thank God we've got Jesal on the podcast because he can break it down for the streets the right way. What's happened this week?
It's not good, everyone. It's not good. We're in a very desperate situation. The Bank of England's had to step in and take care of various gilts and stuff like that, which is pretty much unheard of. That is basically saying that the government have messed this up to such an extent that our economy, parts of our economy could collapse. So I mean, the only silver lining I see in this is that potentially this could be so bad that it gets resolved much faster. So, for example, if the government gets kicked out effectively, or there's general election or something, and then we can actually get back on an even keel with like a sensible government, whoever that may be. Because what's happened is, I guess, for anyone who doesn't really know, the new Prime Minister Liz Truss and her new Chancellor, they're kind of in the pockets of big business in terms of, big corporations and stuff. They've both worked for them before. They've done dodgy dealings with them and stuff like that. And it seems like what happened is that they knew this would drop the pound, and they got into bed with all the sort of private bankers who were going to short the pound. So many people, well, a very small handful of people who knew this was going to happen, shorted the pound and have made like millions and millions from it. And unfortunately, everyone else is really suffering from it. So mortgage rates have already started going up, but also loads of mortgages that were approved have now been retracted from people, which is really shocking, actually. And like, say, for example, if you were paying, let's just take a round number, £1,000 a month, right? If you're on your current rate, I'd say in about a year's time, that would easily be £1,500 to £2,000 easily. And that's honestly, that's being pretty cautious the way that we're going, unless there's a new government and they manage to sort certain things out. But Britain is definitely in a very, very sticky place right now. It's not good. There are very few redeeming qualities to what's going on with the pound and with economics in general. So yeah, it's pretty depressing.
Has there been any social or sorry, Vic, has there been any social or physical ways that that's expressed itself? Like when you're out and about in the suburbs or central London, like are there any visual indicators coming to the surface already?
Right now, because it's still pretty recent, I'd say no. Plus the Queen died, so that there was a little bit of that. I think it's kind of like what you were saying on last week's show, that people have already booked trips to Dubai, so they'll go on them. And say, for example, for myself, I booked concert tickets that were pretty expensive, but I paid for them back in February or whatever, because that's when the tickets got released. Right now, I'd be second guessing everything pretty much. It's my birthday this weekend, and I'm like, let's just be chilled this weekend. Let's just do relaxed stuff. Let's not go overboard. We'll still celebrate, but not go overboard. And I think people will gradually, once it starts biting, people will stop going to restaurants as much. They will watch their food shop. I'm a bit of a Costco addict, and I go to Costco, and over the last few months, just due to inflation, forget everything else over the last couple of weeks, the prices at Costco have gone up. Everyone knows that meme about the indicator of the Costco hot dog that the CEO of Costco said, it's got to stay this price. That has risen in the UK. That has now become, I think, £2 or something, and it used to be 75p. So even Costco is not immune from this. So there's a lot going on. And with inflation, with interest rates going up, it's a really toxic mess. Like, this is kind of like a doomsday scenario playing out. These are the first steps of it. So that's why I don't think it'll last that long, because I don't see people will be marching in the streets by Christmas, like 100%. There's nothing else they can do. They will force the government out, I think. But let's see.
So when you mentioned about the Bank of England stepping in, can you give anyone that's listening just a little bit more context around that? So when they step in, what does that mean? Like, what are they going to do, and what effect will it have potentially?
So the Bank of England are very independent, and they provide a lot of guidance. They control certain things and can pull certain levers, but they never really step into a situation where the government has messed things up. It just doesn't happen. I think they've done it once in the last 30 years or something. And I think, what was it, a couple of days ago on Friday, they pulled some levers to pay off, I think it was like about 160 billion worth of basically bonds and gilts, because otherwise that would have dragged a lot of stuff under. And the credit rating of the UK has already gone down anyway. It used to be AAA and stuff like that. And then gradually, since Brexit, it's gone down and down. So it's kind of trying to protect things from going into junk bond status, because then foreign investors would look at it and think, okay, the UK can't be trusted. Before, the sterling used to have an amazing reputation. And once that happens, it really, these dominoes will start to fall. And it's not just higher level banker thinking and stuff. This will affect everyone in every way, pretty much. Our energy bills have already gone up 4 times this year. and there was a huge riot about that. Basically, they've managed to cap it, but instead of doing the sensible thing and just privatizing a company, an energy company, they've instead it sounds ridiculous, but they've instead taken 160 million of public money effectively and given it to the private companies who are already making hand over fist money. So again, it's just kind of it's just a lot of corruption, a lot of scams, and a lot of insider dealing from the government. And the government used to be kind of okay, they would do certain things, but they'd not do it to this level. And I think that's what's a shame. It's just open corruption right now. And no one can really do anything about it right now until we just go marching in the streets. I think it's getting to that point. In France, people always say in France they wouldn't stand for this, and I agree. In France, there would be strikes, there'd be marching in the streets. And interestingly, there have been more and more strikes for various reasons. The railway, Royal Mail, teachers are striking, lawyers are striking, doctors are striking. It might not make the news internationally, but this is not just a working class problem now. This is a problem at pretty much every level. So yeah, when Raj came over in the summer and we hung out that day, he was like, wow, London's really great, man. I might just come back here. I said, don't do it. Don't. You made the right decision. You got out at the right time. Same with you, Vik.
Yeah.
And don't come back anytime this decade. I think this is going to be for the next at least 4 to 6 years of real pain. And this is just the start. I think that's the scary thing. I think there's going to be a lot of real hurt over the next year. So not to doomsmonger too much, but there are very few redeeming things I can say right now about the situation in the UK.
No, that's okay, because I think people need to know, and I mentioned it last week in last week's episode, that I think the biggest problem that people have is knowledge, right? Is understanding A, what's going on, and B, how it impacts them. But if people don't know what's going on, they're not going to know how it impacts them. They just know that their energy bills have gone up, inflation has gone up, mortgage will go up, everything's just going to go up, but they're not really understanding. And I'm generalizing, absolutely generalizing, but yeah, it is quite doomsday and kind of doom and gloomy. But I think it is our responsibility.
Let me make one
people.
point. Everything's gone up except wages.
Right.
So that's a huge thing.
Well, here's the thing. Well, then you've also, businesses are also in a catch-22, right? Because their bills are going up. So now how do you go, right, we're going to put up wages because our staff's bills have gone up, but our company's bills have gone up. Restaurants have to shut down because they can't afford to pay their bills, and they're at a loss if they stay open. So they're better off shutting down. So now it's 100% of a catch-22. But I think it's important to at least expose kind of at a very basic level, even if it's just that, what's going on. So at least then people can go, okay, there's some knowledge there. How does it impact me, and what can we do about it? But I'm hopeful, because obviously I've still got family, friends, my roots kind of in the UK. I'm hopeful that what you said about it being resolved quickly happens. I'm hopeful. But
one of the saddest things that I heard on that timeline front is that since last November, the conversation was about when is this pain going to start. About a couple of months ago, people started saying we're getting close to the pain and it's going to unlock, 18 to 24 months worth of hurt, almost on the drop of a dime. In the last 7 days, that 2-year window has expanded out to at least 4. And in some cases, Jesal being the second person I've heard say this, which is you should price this in over a decade. That's very worrying that it's gone in that direction. It's gone bad quick. So yeah, man, you were right as always, Jesal, when it comes to all things economy and money, that it might be worth staying out of the UK. It's not a place to kind of speculate right now, or at least try something new. I think everybody, wherever they are hustling, just need to lock down their corner and just keep doing their thing where they are, because moving around right now, voluntarily bringing volatility around yourself is not going to be a smart move.
I would say that for anyone listening from abroad, now is a good time to come to the UK, because your currency is inevitably going to be a lot more, worth a lot more than it was like 2 weeks ago or 4 months ago. And you'll come here and think, wow, London's an amazing place and my money goes really far now and stuff, and you'll have a great time. And that is part of the strategy as well, is to attract not just tourism but foreign investment as well. The problem is that when things get so bad, investors from abroad will start second guessing it and thinking, well, actually, you know what, this has got a bit too bad for us and this is a bit too risky for us. But tourists, yeah, go for it. You'll have a great time in London.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I like, there's no attraction for tourists at the moment, aside from, there's sightseeing or whatever, and maybe their money might go further, but the news coming out of the UK is not positive. So there's going to be a sentiment of, why would I want to go to the UK when there's like, all this stuff happening and it's just doom and gloom?
But people's safety is not in question. That's the thing. If you're coming over, you're not worried about energy bills because you're staying in a hotel. You're not worried about this and that because, going to a restaurant, as long as the restaurant's open and providing good food, you're going to have a great time. And all the tourist places are still going to be open. It's kind of like investing. I'm a great believer, when there's blood in the streets, that's when you start investing. You don't go at the peak and think, oh, wow, I've got FOMO, I start investing then. It's the same thing kind of on holiday in this situation. Not that I am at all being on the tourist committee of the UK. It sounds like I am. I'm just trying to find the one silver lining. I kind of like put it on Instagram earlier this week. I was like, tell the relatives that you actually like, come over to the UK on holiday now. Now's a good time. Be selective with the messages, but yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, I saw you posted that. That was funny.
I wanted to ask you as well, Jesal, like with your accountant professional hat on, of course, your numbers and you've done the exams and that's great and all, but the reality is, I'm sure that you're actually probably a counselor and a therapist to a lot of your clients. Is there any difference from an SME perspective? I mean, we've got your perspective, but more broadly, when you look at some of the clients that you service or advise, is there any differences or nuances with their collective sentiment?
Not at the moment, but those phone calls are going to come in the next 2 to 4 weeks for sure, asking, what do I do? What do I do? And, with tax season coming up as well, I mean, there's obviously a lag when it comes to tax and things like that. So, but I can imagine this time next year it being a very different landscape. When you look at this tax year from April to the coming up April, I think a lot of people are going to feel the bite as it goes on month by month. And we're already noticing on one of my other businesses, certain clients are starting to duck out over the last couple of months. They're saying, okay, my disposable income is not going as far as it used to, and I have to think twice. And these are you're talking about high earning professionals here. You're talking about 6-figure people who are thinking, okay, maybe I can do without this. Because listen, loads of people have seen this coming. Inflation, anyone who's been involved in crypto properly for the last 2-3 years knows that inflation is a problem. This is not a surprise. Anyone with, who's been keeping track of any numbers knows a recession has been on the horizon for a long time. I mean, technically we're in a recession anyway. But I think seeing the government tank the economy is quite a surprising development, even for the Conservatives themselves. They're like, okay, we didn't think it could get this bad. So I think they're fractured. I think, if people can rally and get a general election going and get a new government in, then that's some hope. But right now, I know like the memes and stuff are saying that the UK is acting like an emerging market or a developing nation and stuff like that. It's true. Since Brexit, this has been the case. Year by year, things have got worse and worse. And it's not a surprise. This last 6 years has been tough. The next 6 years is going to be tough as well. So in summary, you guys did well to get out when you did. Like, nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
You know what's funny? I actually moved to Abu Dhabi in 2016.
Wow.
And which was obviously the year of Brexit. And my wife is a Portuguese national. And we got the opportunity to move to Abu Dhabi, and we almost didn't think twice, because and Brexit was a driver, like a huge driver, because we were like, we can foresee challenges and problems and all that kind of stuff. We were like, let's take the chance. Let's just see what happens. And obviously 6 years later, we're still here. But that was the year we moved, and Brexit was, one of the driving forces behind that decision when we got the opportunity to come out here.
Right. So, well, if you're looking at coming to the UK, then you're going to get yourself a 20% discount. So head on over and go and pick up some goodies. And then if you're not, and you've decided that you want to live somewhere else, then burn your return ticket back to the UK. You won't be needing it at any point in the next 6 years. That's the best way to summarize it. Well, guys, thanks so much. I think, anything else we got to cover today?
We covered everything, Jesal. Thanks so much, man. Really appreciate your input into the group with all the editorial stuff, but also joining us today. I think we might need to do some kind of semi-permanent replacement of Alex.
I think, like I said we're gonna have like the kind of usual like resident hosts, and then depending on people's schedules, because obviously people are in different time zones, I would love to have like a hot seat host. If not on every episode, then maybe we just increase the episodes. But yeah, shout out to our advising committee, our crew, the guys that are watching the headlines, Arjun, Bal, Jesal, of course, on the show today, Kishan, Kyron, Neil, and Sal. Everybody's been busting in a whole bunch of stories this week on the group. So we're grateful to all of you. And extra thanks to you, Jesal, for taking time out at short notice to cover up for Alex's lazy ass. I don't know what he's doing, what level of debauchery it is right now in Amsterdam on a Thursday night, but I'm guessing it's better than what we're about to do, which is to plan the distance in time between now and actually going to sleep. So big up to him. Can't wait to have Alex back on the show. I'm sure this will be a group of 3, 4, and even 5 sometimes. But yeah, if you've enjoyed the show. Oh, sorry, by the way, Jesal, anybody you want to give a shout out to? Shout out to you, Jesal. It's your birthday this weekend. What, Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday, yeah.
Okay, man. A big one or like just another early?
No, it's absolutely not a big one. It's like one of the worst numbers, pretty much.
44.
So,
56.
No, 44 is a good number. You see, this is the thing.
56.
No, 56. No, 57 actually. Yeah. I'm really hoping, in a very selfish way, I hope MIA releases her album tomorrow, because that'll be a great birthday present to me. Because this is going to be a low-key birthday, and I love MIA, and there's like she's trying to get the album out, and I'm hoping it comes out tomorrow. That'd be good.
Yeah, hold on. So let me she just released a single. She put a single out, right?
Yeah, she put the single out a couple of months ago.
I didn't like it.
She's been doing some Instagram live streams as well, and she's talking about her. I think her record label are being really annoying and stuff like that. And it took her 2 years to clear some samples. She also said, bizarrely enough, on an Instagram that her heart stopped a couple of weeks ago, and so she's had some health issues. But yeah, like I love MIA. I'm a huge fan. So if she releases her album on the 30th of September, and then my birthday's the next day, that'll be dope. Just a purely selfish little shout out to myself. So yeah, that's cool.
Nice. No, shout out to you. Shout out to you from us. Where can folks connect with you online?
Jesal TV. So Jesal.tv is the website. All the social medias are Jesal TV, which is JESAL TV.
Okay, that's
sorry, Raj.
Twitter as well.
Sorry to interrupt, Jesal. You've also got a podcast which is pretty amazing. Like,
oh, thank you.
It's one for the nerds for sure.
Yeah, it's called the Transatlantic Rebels podcast. I do it with an American guy, hence why I'm in the UK, he's in America. We've got the same birthday, and that's why we kind of started the podcast, because we're both MIA fans as well and stuff. But we generally talk about TV and music and films, like especially like he's a huge Marvel nerd. So if you love the Marvel universe, like he knows everything. He's read the comics and all this kind of stuff. Like he's an expert on that. So yeah, we have a lot of fun on that. So it's good.
I always wondered about the name, man, because I get the Atlantic bit because you're both on either side of it, but it's just the first bit that had me confused.
Yeah, we did consider that.
It had Jesal confused for a little while as well.
Yeah, no, that was actually part of the discussions. We really thought, is this the right word to use? But no, it's cool. It's cool.
You know, your co-host is black, right?
Yeah.
So it's so funny. Me and Kyron, we first became friends online. Kyron's black. And we actually recorded on a rooftop in Toronto in 2017, a pilot for a show, because I just grown a beard at that time. So me and Kyron had a show called Beards and Braids, because he's got long ass braids like down to his calves. So we thought it'd be quite interesting to do Beards and Braids, but then we shot a couple of pilots and we were just like, nah, it's not the one. But the thing is with creative people, you try a couple of projects and eventually you just end up doing this. And the whole thinking behind having an editorial committee was because Kyron, of all the people on the planet, is just consistently every day. He's like morning brew. He's just like constantly sending me like headlines and stuff to check out. So yeah, man. Yeah, full circle, man. But have a brilliant, amazing birthday this weekend, my friend, with your family. We will obviously, I'll drop you a message as well. And thanks so much for checking in. And thanks for the listeners as well for listening in. If you enjoyed the podcast, give us a 5-star rating and review on whichever app you're listening to this podcast on or watching it on, especially Spotify gang. Would really love that, and Apple Podcast gang as well. And also hit subscribe, give us a like, comment on YouTube if you're watching this podcast. We'll be back in a week's time, if not before. I'll be back in Dubai. Maybe Vic and I might even be in the same room. And Alex, do a really good job editing this podcast, my friend. And we will talk to you guys next week. Much love. Peace.